In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a Flex MasterNode on a Linux VPS with a local cold wallet. In this setup, you're actually going to be doing two wallets. The first wallet that we're going to set up will be your local wallet, which will actually hold your coins. And then we'll be setting up a VPS wallet. And the VPS wallet is a wallet running on a machine that you're going to be renting. And that machine will be running up in the cloud 24/7, and that's where the MasterNode daemon, which is sort of the back-end process for your MasterNode, will be running. And the reason you like to do this setup is you have your MasterNode daemon running 24/7, so say if your local power goes out, your MasterNode will continue to run and collect coins. And your local wallet, the wallet you install on your local machine, your home computer, or you could also install it on another VPS computer if you wanted, but typically you install it on your home computer. That doesn't have to be on all the time. It only has to be on to be staking your coins, but your MasterNode will be running up in the cloud all the time. So you can turn off your local machine, you can reboot your local machine, you don't have to worry about your MasterNode getting reset. So that's why we do it this method. And it's also more secure because the people, if anyone wanted to search the network to see which masternodes are running, they can see the IP address of those masternodes. But what they will see is the IP address of your VPS server, and your coins won't actually exist on the wallet on that VPS server. That VPS server will just be running the masternode sort of back-end process. So it'll be running and collecting coins, but it won't store those coins. It'll be sending the coins to your local wallet. So if somebody hacked onto your VPS, they couldn't get to your coins. They could turn off your masternode or something like that, but big deal. So that's why we want to do this setup. So the first step here is to install the local wallet. And to do that, you're going to go out to the Flex GitHub site. And I'm going to have these links here in the comments below so you can get to them. So you just want to go out to the Flex GitHub. And you're going to download the latest version, which is always going to be at the top of the GitHub site. So here you're going to choose your operating system, and I'm installing this on a Windows machine. So I'm going to just go with the standard Qt here. And I'm going to save this onto my desktop. You can save this really wherever you want, but my typical place is the desktop, and I'm going to show you in a second what I'll do with that once it's done downloading. Okay, so now it has downloaded the executable, the wallet. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to store that in my normal programs directory. Some people you can just run it here from your desktop if you want, but I don't like to have executables on my desktop in case my kids come on my computer and throw some stuff away or clean up the desktop or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this out on my C drive in my programs directory. So I'm going to go to C, program files, and in here I'm just going to create a new folder for this, and I'm going to put the actual executable in that folder. But now I'm going to send a shortcut to my desktop. So if I right click that, you go send to desktop, it's going to create a shortcut. That way what I can do is I can run it from the desktop now, but I don't have to worry about my kids accidentally deleting it. So now I just double click this to run it. The first time it's going to ask you where do you want to put your data directory. I would leave this in the default location, so just leave it as it is. If you're an advanced user, you can choose a custom area, but if you're just getting started in this, I would go with the default data directory. That way if someone ever needs to help you, they know relatively where your app data folder is, and they can tell you how to do certain things like make an extra backup or upgrade the wallet or something. So I would just leave it as default, just hit OK. You may sometimes when you run these get a pop-up that asks, do you want to allow the wallet to go through the firewall? Just hit the allow button. You want to allow your firewall to allow this traffic. So now the wallet has opened up, and what it's doing is synchronizing with the network. It's going to do this for a few minutes. While we're waiting for this to synchronize, what we can do is kind of move on to the first step of setting up this wallet. What we want to do is we want to create a couple addresses in this wallet. So you want to go to File, Receiving Addresses. And in here you're going to see we already have our first address is given to us. It has no label here. This label is just a friendly name you can give to your address. No one out on the blockchain, when they use this address, if they send you some coins, no one can see this label. It's only visible to your local wallet. So you can use this for whatever you want. What I like to do is I create this first address. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to call this one Collecting. And this is where I'm going to collect my coins before I set up my MasterNode. When you set up your MasterNode, you want to use a single address, and you want to send your coins to that single address in one transaction. So that single address I'm talking about for setting up a MasterNode, it's called a collateral address. If you start collecting coins on your collateral address, it kind of makes that address filled up with, random chunks of coins, and it gets a little bit messy. So what I like to do is I don't use my collateral address, which is the address I will be running the MasterNode from, until I have all the coins ready. So I'm going to collect all my coins onto here, but when I'm ready to set up my MasterNode, I'm going to use another address. And to do that, you would want to create a new address. You hit the new, and then give it a label. And I'm just going to call it MN1. Let's do lowercase just to keep everything consistent. So MN1. So when I'm ready, that's where I'll send my collateral coins to run my MasterNode. So this is called a collateral address. So we have our two addresses. You can create as many as you want here. You can set up multiple collecting ones, up to you, whatever you want to do. But for now, to keep it simple, I only have these two. So now I have two addresses. And one of the first things I want to do is get this wallet. First thing you want to make sure is it syncs, but you also want to encrypt this wallet before you start using the addresses in this wallet. So you encrypt the wallet, and then make sure you can decrypt it or unlock it once it's encrypted. Because the worst thing you're going to do is get a bunch of coins on a wallet, encrypt it, and then have some sort of issue where you can't unencrypt it or decrypt it. So make sure you encrypt it and you can unencrypt it before you start using that wallet. So now we have our two addresses. What we can do is we can encrypt this wallet. So you go to Tools, or Settings, Encrypt Wallet, and here you're going to put a passphrase. And I'm going to put something very simple. You should not put something this simple. What this does is it puts a password on your wallet. So if somebody got onto your computer, if they wanted to send coins to, say, an exchange or send them to somebody you don't know who they're going to, they would need to put in this password before they can send those coins if you have your wallet locked. And you probably will always have your wallet locked. But the other thing that this does is it puts a password on your wallet backups. So if you're making backups of your wallet and you put it, say, on a thumb drive, and you lose that thumb drive, if somebody finds that thumb drive and gets access to that wallet, your wallet backups, if you don't have an encrypted wallet, they could load that up and then take all your coins. So before you're doing any backups, before you're doing anything, you want to put this encryption thing here. But you also want to make sure you remember what this encryption phrase is. If you lose this phrase, you will never be able to get access to your coins on this wallet. So you want to write down this phrase, or 8 or more words is what it suggests, or 10 more random characters. Just a very good password. So I'm going to do super simple. You should not do super simple like what I do. And then it's warning you, you really want to do this. If you lose it, you lose all your coins. Yes, I understand. And what it's going to do now is it's going to restart the wallet here in a second. So it says I want to restart it, so just let it shut down. Whenever you close these wallets, you always want to give them a minute before you open it right back up, because it does some cleanup activities. So I always just give it a second, maybe 10 seconds after I've closed it. After that window disappears, give it a few seconds. Now we can open it back up. So now you can see that this icon here has changed to a lock symbol, saying the wallet is encrypted and locked. And those are two different things, encrypted and locked. Encrypted just means you have a password on your wallet. Locked means you have the wallet locked, and the only way to unlock it is to use that password. So they're similar things, but they are actually different. Encryption just means there's a password, and locking and unlocking is what you do with that password. So right now it is locked and obviously encrypted. You can't lock it unless it's encrypted. So now it's still synchronizing here. We're going to give it a few seconds. So I'm just going to pause the video and let that synchronize. Alright, so that wallet has finished synchronizing. All of that information has gone away. And you can double check that by hovering over this check mark here. It says synchronization finished, and it also tells you which block number we're on. So it looks like we're good here. We have this wallet. It's able to synchronize, and it's still locked and encrypted. What we want to do before we start using this is double check that we can unlock the wallet. So you go to Settings, Unlock Wallet, put in your passphrase, and we're going to do a full unlock, so don't check this. This is only when you're doing staking. So if you want to unlock your wallet for staking only, that means so no one else can actually send coins. So if someone jumps on your computer, they won't be able to send coins if you choose this unlock for anonymization and staking only. But you'll be able to be staking. But right now I want to do a full unlock just to make sure this works. I'm doing a check. So I put in my passphrase, hit OK, and you can see that icon has changed now. So now it's still encrypted, meaning it has a password, but it's now unlocked. So this wallet is good. I'm able to synchronize, I'm able to encrypt it and unlock it, and that means I can start using this wallet for my coins. So what I want to do now is go out and get some coins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my collecting address, and I'm going to go out and purchase some coins from somewhere, mine coins, however I'm going to get these coins. I'm going to send them to this collecting address. So I right click that and I just say copy address, and then I'm going to give that address to whomever to collect them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to go get some coins and send them here to my collecting address, and I'll be back in a moment. Alright, I am back, and now you see that I have collected 10,001 coins. And the reason I did this one extra coin, so the minimum collateral for Flex is 10,000 coins, and it's the first flexible collateral coin, and so you can choose whatever you want for your collateral, but the minimum is 10,000. And the maximum, I believe, is 2.6 million or something like that. You can look on their Discord server for that exact info. But 10,000 is the minimum. So I sent myself 10,000, but I sent one extra coin. And the reason I did that is because I still need to move this collateral to my collateral address, the other address in my wallet. And to move that, I'm going to have to pay a transaction fee. So if I had sent myself 10,000 exactly, they would be stuck on this collecting, and I wouldn't be able to move them to that other address. So that's the reason I did this one extra coin, is just so I can do some transactions with that. So to put them onto my collateral address, first I want to get my collateral address. So I'll go into here and go to receiving addresses, copy my MasterNode collateral address, go to the send tab, and I'm going to send it to myself. It automatically filled that label in, so that way I know I actually put the correct address in there that I wanted. And we're going to send ourselves 10,000 coins exactly. You want to do this in one transaction. If you do this in multiple transactions, it won't work. If you send yourself more than 10,000 coins, it won't work. Well, actually, with this coin, it will work. This is one of the few coins that you can send yourself more, and you won't have issues. Other coins you have to send the exact collateral. So this one you can send whatever you want as long as it's more than 10,000. I'm just going to go with the minimum, but if you have more coins, go for it. Send yourself more coins. So 10,000 coins, send it to my MasterNode collateral address and hit send. And this is just warning you that you're going to get charged a transaction fee. Hit yes. So now we can look over on our transactions tab. If you look on our transactions tab, you see that first transaction where I'd sent myself some coins is here, and it's going to my collecting address. This second transaction, this is the one we just did to send our collateral to our collateral address. This is called your collateral transaction. And the reason this transaction here shows this strange amount out here is because what we did is we sent coins between two addresses within our wallet. We didn't send any coins outside of our wallet. So this amount here just shows you the number of coins that leave your wallet or enter your wallet. And that is the transaction fee. So that went out to the miners. So that's the reason that amount is there, is that's the amount of coins that left our wallet. To see the actual transaction details, you can double click this. And you can see here, this is what I did, is I sent 10,000 coins, and here's the transaction ID. So this is the collateral transaction. So 10,000 coins is what I sent. That's good. That's what we meant to do. And what we need to do before we can actually start our MasterNode is this collateral transaction needs to have 16 confirmations. Right now, if you hovered over it, it says it's got 2 of 6. What we can do though while we're waiting for that is move on to the next step. So before we actually hit the start button on our MasterNode to start our MasterNode, we'll come back to here and we'll double check that this had 16 confirmations. But we don't need to sit here and wait before we move on to that next step. We'll move on now, and before we hit that start button on our MasterNode, we'll double check that this has the 16 confirmations. We're going to install a program called Putty. Putty is the program we're going to use to communicate with our VPS and set it up. So what you'll want to do is go to this website, putty.org, and we're going to download the application. Click this download Putty here. And then I'm running a Windows 64-bit, so I'm going to choose that. And I'm just going to hit the run. And then I'm going to step through this installation. Just everything is default is what we want. Don't need to use README. And just hit finish. So now we have Putty installed. And before we connect to our VPS, we're going to want to create an RSA key. And the RSA key will be used to communicate with our VPS server in a secure way. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to create a public and private key pair for your computer to connect to your VPS. And you're going to set it up so the only person that can connect to that VPS is somebody with the private key. So that way you can protect your VPS from anyone connecting to it. And the only person that can connect to it is you, because you should be the only person with that private key. So to create this RSA key, we just go to the Putty installation folder, and we want to choose this program that Putty installed called PuttyGen. And this is how you generate RSA keys. So the first step is to click Generate, and then you move your mouse around until this status bar here is filled up. You're creating just random movements of your mouse. That way the key that's created is unique to your situation. Alright, so now we have this RSA key. This is the public key we will use. And we need to save this public key and our private key into a location. So I'm going to save them here on the desktop. But before I save them, I'm going to do an extra level of security, and I'm going to put a passphrase onto my private key. That way if anyone gets access to my private key, they still can't get onto my VPS unless they know my password. So I'm going to create a very simple password, but you don't want to create a simple one. You want to create a complex one. And you're going to also want to remember that, because that will be the only way you can connect to your VPS. The one good thing about this setup is the VPS doesn't actually contain any coins in this setup. The VPS is just running the MasterNode. So if you lose access to this private key or this password on your private key, It's not the end of the world. You'll have to recreate your masternode on the VPS, but you won't lose your coins. Your coins are only going to be located in your local Windows wallet. So now I got a passphrase here. I'm going to save off this public key. Just save it onto the desktop. And I'm just going to give it a super simple name. What you'll want to do is create a real name with the coin name in it, and my suggestion is you create one of these RSA keys for every coin in every VPS instance. So say if you had 3 masternodes of the same coin, you're going to want to label each of these keys differently and create a separate key for each masternode instance. And that way, if somebody does get access to one of your keys or somehow hacks into it, not all of your masternodes are at risk. So I suggest you create a separate one for each coin in masternode. So I'm just going to create a pub key, or call it pub key, but you can call it something with the coin name and maybe a date, whichever you want. So now we have the public key. Now we're going to save the private key. Just do the same thing onto the desktop. I'm just going to call it private key. So now we have the public and the private key, and this is saved off so we can get access to it later. You'll want to store these in a permanent location also, not here on the desktop, so save them somewhere where you remember where they're at, because you will need them when we set up Putty later, or you'll at least need the private key. So I'm going to leave this Putty Gen window open, because we will use this in a minute when we connect to our VPS. You don't have to use it, but I like to use it because I have this key already set up. This is a key I'm going to enter when we get to that VPS setup step. So right now, I'm just going to move on to the next step, and we're going to leave this here. So now we're ready to load up our VPS, which is our virtual private server. What I'm going to use is a place called Vultr. And down in the comments there is a link to Vultr. It is an affiliate link. If you use this, I will get some sort of something. I'm not sure what it is, but I think I get, as soon as you pay something, I think I get a few extra dollars. And I think you actually get $10 yourself if you use this referral link. So you can use my referral link. If you have a friend that has one, then use that. But I suggest you use someone's referral link because you get something also. So there's my referral link. It's down in the comments. But I already have an account, so I just need to go to my dashboard. And the first time you set up Vultr, what you're going to want to do, the first thing is to go to the billing tab and then set up some sort of billing. You can't use any servers until you've set up billing and you've deposited some money, because you pay for your servers by the hour. So what they want you to do is first deposit some sort of money there before you start loading up servers. And then when you load up servers, it starts taking money out of that that fund that you've built up. So once you've set up a billing and a fund, then you can start creating servers. What we want to do the first thing though is we want to add our RSA key, or SSH key, that we created with our Putty Gen tool. To do that, you come over here to SSH keys and you say add key. And what you're going to add is what we generated in Putty Gen. So this entire thing from SSH RSA down, copy that, paste it in here, and then we're going to give it a name. And here I'm just going to call it just to have, I'm going to use this sort of term for our masternode all throughout here. So you'd say add the key. So now that we have the key added, we don't need this anymore. I can close that out. Now we're going to go and click this plus button here to deploy a new server. And you're going to choose a location. First you choose a continent and then choose the location that's closest to you. I'm going to leave it there with New York. And then what you want to do is create an Ubuntu 1604 x64. That's the operating system. And if this $2.50 a month option is available to you, you can probably use this. I would go, for the first masternode you create, I would go with a $5 a month version. You can use the $2.50, but I've not used that often, and I don't know if it has any problems. Really the only difference between these two is there's the 512 megabytes of memory on the $2.50 version, and there's a gigabyte of memory on the $5 a month version, and it's also IPv6 only. They're changing. I've seen this 250 version change a little bit lately, so I would hesitate to use this for long term. I've also heard them call this a test version, so I don't know if maybe this is less stable, or maybe if they have, or they're maybe changing these sometimes. Or I wouldn't go with this unless you just want to do a quick test or something. It's only a few cents more an hour. I guess it's double price. But if you know what you're doing, go for the 250 if you think it'll work and you feel comfortable with it. For your first one, I would go with the $5 a month. I know this is very stable, so I'm going to go with that. And then down here you have some additional features. You can enable IPv6. You can enable auto backups. You can enable the DDoS protection. I wouldn't do that. It's pretty expensive. If you have a MasterNode that generates a lot of money and people are actually DDoSing you to stop you from getting your MasterNode rewards, then sure, enable that. But at this point, I haven't used this yet since it's so expensive. So what you could do is enable the auto backups. That's a great feature. Then you don't have to go through this whole process again if something happens to your node and you need to restore your VPS server from a backup. So go for that if you want. You don't have to. And the IPv6, I'm not really familiar with that, so I can't really comment on what to do with that. What you do want to do here next is you come down here to go to SSH keys and choose the key that we created for this coin. And then we're going to give it a name, give this VPS server a name, and I'm going to continue with my naming convention I was using. And make sure you got one server, $5 a month, deploy now. And now what it does is it shows you your list here of servers, and then there's a status over here. So what we want to do is just kind of wait around until this says it's ready. Once it's ready, then we can move on to connecting to it. So I'm just going to sort of sit back and fast forward this while that gets ready. Alright, so that now says running. And what we can do is click on sort of this white area here and just click that, and it'll bring you to a page with more information about the node. And what we were going to want here is the IP address for right now. So you just click this, you can copy the IP address. And then what we want to do now is open up Putty. This time you're going to open the full version of Putty, which is just Putty. And here you're going to paste the IP address. Then you're going to come down here into the connection area, go to SSH, and click auth. And here's where you're going to put your private key. This is the private key. This is the key file, the RSA key file we created with the Putty Gen program. So you hit browse, and we saved that out onto the desktop, and I called it priv key. So that's the private key file. And come back and come up to this session tab, and what we want to do is we're going to save this session, and I'm going to give it the same name, and I'm going to save this just so next time we want to connect to this VPS, all we have to do is open up Putty, click that session, hit load, it'll load up all these settings, and then we can just hit open. It's going to give you a security alert. I know this is a good server to connect to. If you're connecting to someone else's server that could be suspicious or something, you might want to look at this and make sure you trust it. But I know this is a good server. I'm just going to hit yes. And now we're going to log in as, root. And hit enter. And then it's going to ask for the passphrase for the RSA key. That's not the password listed here in the VPS or in the Vultr settings. It's the password that we set up in Putty Gen, or the passphrase we set up in Putty Gen for our RSA key. If you remember, that Putty Gen was that screen window over here. I shouldn't have closed it, but when we had that window open, when we saved our public and private keys, the pub key and the priv key, remember we put a passphrase on our private key. That's what it's asking for. It's asking for that passphrase for that RSA key. So I remember what I put there. So you're just going to type your passphrase in there. And then it brings you to your command prompt. Whenever you see this prompt here, root at guest, and then that cursor, that means the system is ready and waiting for the next command. So this is the command prompt. And what we want to do is we're going to type a few commands here into this window. It's going to be very simple. What we're going to use is a script here. So here's the Linux commands. What you're going to do is highlight this entire line and copy it. And to paste into Putty, you right-click once. You don't use the control keys like Control-C, Control-V. You don't use keyboard shortcuts. You just right-click once, and it automatically pastes it. And then you hit the Enter key on your keyboard. And what that did is it downloaded this shell script. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to change some permissions on that. So highlight this, right-click Copy, and then right-click once, and then hit the Enter key. And that just changed permission, so it's super fast. And now we're going to run that script. So you're going to copy this, and this will run the script on the VPS server. So when we're ready, we hit enter, and it's going to say it's going to start doing a few things, and you can watch the status here. I'm going to just sit back, and I am going to fast forward this part of the video because it might take a couple minutes, but I will be back as soon as it's ready for the next instruction. Alright, so now it is asking us to enter our MasterNode private key. What we're going to do is we're going to let the VPS server give us a private key. And I'll show you what that private key is later, but for now, just hit the Enter key on your keyboard. Alright, so now it is back to the command prompt, meaning it has finished what it was doing, and now it looks like it is ready for the next step. So right now we have our VPS wallet set up and running in a MasterNode sort of state. And there's going to be some information we're going to need from this screen, specifically the VPS IP address, and then this MasterNode private key. This is a private key. You don't want to be sharing this with anyone. What this key is it's really a key that you're going to use to connect your VPS wallet, which is here running on the Linux machine, and your local wallet. And you're going to connect them together by configuring this MasterNode private key in both wallets, and that way both of these wallets can talk to each other. So right now we let the VPS server create this private key, so when we come over here and set up the configuration on our local wallet, we're going to use that private key that the VPS wallet created. And then as long as both of those wallets are talking to each other with that private key, they can communicate and no one else can communicate with them. So you don't want to share that private key. It really is a private key. So now what we can do is we can move on to the next step, which is configuring our local wallet, because our VPS wallet is all set up and running. So to set up our local wallet, what we want to do is configure the MasterNode configuration file. So go to Tools and open MasterNode configuration file. And this machine, the first time I'm running this, so I'm going to choose Notepad as the program I want. And I'm going to say always open config files with Notepad. If you haven't opened a config file before, you might get a screen similar to this. I would just choose Notepad. It works great. So what we got here in Notepad is our configuration file. And there is an example line in this configuration file. These pound signs mean this is a comment, so the program's not going to be reading these commented lines. But what I also did is I gave you an example in the comments below of a MasterNode config file values. And I'm just going to use that. That way you can step through it with me at the same time. So just copy that and paste the line here. And what we're going to do is replace all these values in here in the square brackets. This first value is an alias. This is sort of it's just a friendly name like we set up for our addresses. It's a friendly name you're going to give in your wallet for this MasterNode. And I just run with MasterNode 1. You can name it whatever you want. It's the alias you're going to it's a friendly name for your MasterNode. So this first value is the VPS IP address. and we get that from the Putty screen. And to copy out of Putty, all you do is drag with your left click, so you left click once and drag, and when you've highlighted everything you want to copy, you just let go of the mouse button. You don't use any command buttons like before. You just let go of the mouse button, and whatever is highlighted automatically goes in your clipboard. So now I can come over here and paste it. And then we want the MasterNode gen key value. So once again, left click and drag. Whatever is highlighted will be automatically put into my clipboard. Come over here and paste it. And then now we need these two other values, MasterNode outputs transaction ID value and MasterNode outputs 10 value. We're going to get these values from our local wallet. So we can kind of move this Putty screen down. And in our local wallet, we want to go to Tools, Debug Console, and then come to this Console tab. And then down here, you're going to type MasterNode outputs. And this will give you the transaction IDs of every sort of collateral address or collateral transaction that you have set up in your wallet. So this here is the actual transaction ID. So you copy that and you put it in your MasterNode outputs transaction ID. And then your MasterNode outputs 10 value. And you see out here is this is the second number here that you got, and it's either going to be a 0 or a 1. In my case, it's 0, so I'm going to replace this in square brackets with just a plain old 0. And then now we got everything set up. We got our alias, our VPS IP address, the port number, the MasterNode gen key from our server, and this port number. Make sure this port number here matches the same port number that your VPS. If you used this script that I mentioned, your port number should be this value, the same value that I put in the comments, but you just want to double check. Make sure that port number is the same here. The MasterNode private key, and then double check that your transaction ID number here is correct, and then your MasterNode outputs 01 value is correct. Everything looks good here, so we're going to just save this file and then exit out. And we don't need this debug window anymore. And what we need to do now is restart this wallet so it loads up that configuration file. So just go File, Exit. Give it a second. Like I said, let these wallets sort of close out. They do some cleanup activities. It's probably good enough. And then we'll just double click that to open it back up. And then what you want to do now, before we come over here to the MasterNodes tab and start our MasterNode, you want to let this MasterNode information sort of sync up. If your wallet had been turned off for a while, your blockchain will be syncing up, but since I just stopped it and started it, it really just needs to synchronize with the MasterNodes. So just let this status bar fill up so it synchronizes all the MasterNodes out there on the network. Then we'll move on to the final step of actually turning on our MasterNode. So I'm just going to sit back and fast forward the video while it synchronizes this MasterNode information. Alright, so it has finished synchronizing that MasterNode info. And what we can do now is come over here to the MasterNodes tab. And you can see here that we have our MasterNode we set up, that MasterNode 1 alias. The IP address, everything's in here, and it's saying it's missing. So what we want to do is start this MasterNode. So right now it's saying it's missing because it hasn't been started. When you set up the MasterNode out on the VPS server, the MasterNode is running, but it needs to be started or booted up sort of remotely by our local wallet, because our local wallet has the coins. So the local wallet has to say, hey, MasterNode out there, I have some coins. Here's my transaction ID proving that I have the coins. Why don't you start up and start getting me MasterNode rewards? So we need to sort of start that thing, and you need to start it from your local wallet because that's where your coins are. So to start it, Some wallets you can use these buttons, but it looks like this one doesn't always work with these buttons. So the safest way I like to do it is I always just go and do it from the debug console. So you go to debug console, and what you want to do is do a MasterNode start missing. And what that will do is start up any missing masternodes. And you see this one here, the status is missing. So MasterNode start missing, hit enter, and it says your wallet is locked. I forgot to unlock my wallet. You can't start these masternodes if your wallet is locked. And you can see that my wallet is locked here. So what I want to do, first thing is unlock that wallet. And I want to do a full unlock. I don't want that checked right now. So now it is unlocked. I can come back into the debug console and run that command again. And I can type it again, or I can push the up arrow, and that will just rerun the last command. And you can see now, successfully started one, and the alias, so it tells you which one it started, and it is successful. So what you can do is close that. And you come back to here. If this doesn't automatically change to enabled, you can hit this update status. This screen will automatically update every minute, but if you want to update it manually, just keep hitting that status button, or that update status. So it looks like our MasterNode is started and enabled. What we want to do, though, before we trust that, is come back into our Putty window, and we're going to double check that it actually is running. And there are some commands that you can run in here, and they are listed sort of at the bottom. So you can do a get info command, or you can do a MasterNode status. And the get info command, I'll run through these real quick for you. So right click that and copy, and then right click once in here and paste. The get info command just gives you the most important information in here is the number of connections you have and the block number. So if you ever have some sort of trouble and you're not getting connections, you can check if there are connections. You can also check that the block number is right. So if you had booted up your wallet and it didn't start the MasterNode for any reason, you can come in here and check that the block number is actually, this VPS wallet is synced up. And to double check that, you see which block number it's on. You come back to your local wallet, you hover over here, the 9905. So it's actually moved to 9905. I bet this one, hit the up arrow to rerun that command, and it's on 9905. So both of these wallets are on the latest block. What we want to do is on this VPS server is check the MasterNode status. So we're going to run this other command, the MasterNode status command. Oh, I did not type that correctly. I'm missing the CLI. So I will fix that for you. And what we see is the MasterNode has started successfully. This is good. So the local wallet says that we're enabled. The VPS wallet says we're started successfully. Everything looks good. What you can do now is, I like to leave this Putty window up and running on my computer. I don't want to close it yet until I've gotten my first MasterNode reward. That way I know, if I ever need to come back and if I haven't gotten a reward, say in like 24 hours, that first reward does take a while to come. So what you want to do is you don't freak out if you don't get a reward for a few hours, or even 10 hours, 12 hours. I would probably wait a full day before I start to get concerned. But because that first MasterNode reward comes, it takes a long time. Once you get the first one, then they start coming a lot faster. So if you don't get one for 24 hours, don't freak out. What you want to do is probably go onto Discord and say, hey, anybody know how long it's been lately for that first reward? But what I do is I leave this Putty window up and open until I get that first reward. Once I get that first reward, I know that my MasterNode is running and good, and you can just hit this X button, and I'll do it now, and that X button will just close that window out. It doesn't stop your MasterNode. It doesn't do anything to your MasterNode. It just closes out that Putty session. If I need to come back in, all I need to do is come back into Putty, open up my save session. So highlight it, hit load, open up, and I can log right back in as root, hit my RSA key, and then I can probably put that command right back in. Let's see. If I can type it. Alright, so you can see that it didn't do anything to my MasterNode closing that Putty window out. All it did is just sort of closed that console into our VPS server. So once you've gotten a reward, you can come in here and close this. I would leave this Putty window open so you can run, you know, a few commands if you need to troubleshoot. So if somebody says, hey, check which block number you're on, so they would say run the get info command, and you can say, oh, I'm on this block, and they might say, oh, well, there's something wrong, or you want to just leave this open so you can troubleshoot until you get that first reward. Once you get the first reward, just hit X, close that thing out, and then now your wallet is running. And if you notice, right after we started this, it automatically locked our wallet. You want to unlock this wallet for staking now, because once you start getting rewards, you want to start staking those rewards. So what you do is, after you start your MasterNode, remember to come back in here and double check that your wallet is unlocked for staking. So if I hover over this and stop moving my mouse, you can see that it's encrypted and it's locked. So we want to come and unlock the wallet. And this time we're going to unlock it for staking only. And you put in your password. And then you'll see now it is unlocked, but it's only unlocked for anonymization and staking. And that's good. That's what you want. So before you leave your computer or leave this wallet running for days on end, you want to make sure that you're actually staking. So any of those rewards that come in, they will start staking. And there's probably going to, if you want to know how to stake your rewards the best, you want to do a search on the internet for coin control and staking. To turn on coin control, you'll just come in here in settings, options, go to wallet, and you want to say enable coin control features. And what that does is when you go to the send tab, now you have a new button here. And if you open up that button, you can see these are all your what they call inputs, and they're basically just an address with some coins on it. And when you do coin control, you manage these inputs and you group them together into larger inputs, because when you're staking, you get more stakes more frequently if you have larger inputs and if you have older inputs. So there's sort of an art to all that, and that's why I say look on the internet, because that's a whole video and thing in itself. But there is definitely an art to staking. So what you want to do is go search on the internet for how to stake, and they'll give you tips on certain things like, you know, make large inputs based on how the minimum age of an input before it can stake. So say a coin has a minimum age of 24 hours. So that coin is only, or those inputs are only going to stake at the minimum of 24 hours. If you have a coin like that, you want to have the smallest input that stakes in 24 hours. So as soon as that 24-hour maturation or maturity comes up, you want that coin to stake, or that input to stake right away. But if say the maturity is only 2 hours, then you still want that coin to mature right away, but you can make really huge inputs, because there's going to be a lot of people out there with large inputs, because they know if you make a bunch or even just one large input, but it stakes every 2 hours, you get tons and tons of stakes. But if it takes 24 hours to mature and you instantly get a stake, you're going to have to wait another 24 hours. So if you could break that input, say, into two different inputs, like two equal sized inputs, and those still stake right when that 24-hour maturity ends up, then actually you're getting 2 stakes a day instead of 1. So there's sort of the art of it, is you want to make the inputs large enough so they stake right when they mature, but not so large that you're wasting. And say if you had 5 inputs that stake in 24 hours, and they stake right at that 24-hour mark, if you put those into one input, they would still stake at that 24-hour mark, but you're only going to get one stake. It's much better to have them in 5 individual ones that stake in those 24 hours. So you kind of have to play with it, and that's where the art is. And that's what I say is you want to just search the internet for some videos. So when you do have a bunch of inputs in here, you're going to see each one is going to have a line item here, and there's check marks. And this one here, this is our our collateral, and it's locked because it doesn't want you to send it. If you sent this collateral coin somewhere, then you would actually break your MasterNode. And you can lock and unlock that. If you right click it, you can unlock or lock, but you don't want to do that. If that wasn't locked and it didn't have a lock icon here, I highly suggest you come in there and you lock it. That way you don't accidentally send it, because if you sent it, your MasterNode would break. But when you do the coin control, what you want to do is you're going to have a bunch of inputs in here, and they're all going to be your staking rewards. So you would select them all by putting the check mark in them. Well, first thing you do is you would come over here and you would create an address to send them to. So you would say, this is sort of my method, is I go to my receiving address and I create one, and I just go with big O1. So I can, create a bunch of these addresses, big O2, something like this. And I create 10 of them or something like that. And what I do is the first one, I'm going to send some coins to my first one. So I would right click it, copy it. Now on my screen here, I'm going to pay to it, so I would paste it in here. But I would come into your inputs and you would choose a bunch of coins, and as you put the check marks in here, it tells you how many coins you've selected. So you want to select a bunch of inputs from your staking, and you're going to send them all, and once you have them all selected, you hit OK, and you're going to send them to this address. And this over here tells you the amount of coins you have that you've selected, and you can right click this and say copy after fee, because that is the amount that you've selected minus the fee that's going to be involved, because the more input you select, this fee goes up slightly. And so to make it easy for you to calculate that is you can just right click the after fee amount. So you would copy that and you would paste it in here. And what I'm doing in this instance is I'm sending whatever I selected to my sort of big one sort of input that I've created or address I've created. And what I do when I first start learning is I try different amounts. So start with a small amount, say 50 coins, and then so on the big one I'll put 50, and then on that big 2 address I'll put 100, and on the big 3 address I'll put 200, the big 4 I'll put 500. I'll put a bunch of different sized ones. And then what you do after a day or two is you come to your transactions and you see how long those took to stake. So you can always see when you put the coins onto your address by clicking these. You can't tell what it is, but if you open that up, you can look at the transaction, and then you can go look up on that transaction where the coins came from or where they went to. But that's sort of a difficult way. You can keep a spreadsheet is really, the nerdy way. That's kind of how I do is I create a spreadsheet. It has the input name, and when I sent those coins, when I hit the send button to send it, I will add that time that I sent it onto my spreadsheet. And then in a couple days, you'll see when it stakes. When it stakes, it will tell you which address staked. So you'd come back every couple days and you would see, okay, well, these 5 or 6 addresses staked at this time. You'd put it in your spreadsheet and you'd see, oh, okay, so the 100 input coin staked in 30 hours, but the 500 input staked every 2 hours. Well, so, 500 is definitely going to work better. But then if you look and say the 300 staked every 2 hours too, you say, well, I don't want the 5. I want to go somewhere closer to the 3. And then that's when you start getting fine-tuning those inputs. And that's where all that art comes in. If you want to do it the simple way, you can just create some big inputs, and then if they start staking too often, shrink them down. It's really up to you. But that's how you do that. You enable the coin control features, you come in here, you select whatever input you want, you send them to an address to yourself, and then once those coins in that address start maturing, then they'll start staking. And you can tell if you hover over this if it's staking or not. And right now it says staking is not active. And if I really want to tell why, I can go into Tools, Debug, and then here you say Get Staking Status. And it tells you why I'm not staking. Right now I'm not staking because I don't have mintable coins, which means I don't have coins that are old enough to start staking because they're not mature yet. So this coin that I have, the only coins I have for staking right here are these ones, and I just sent them to myself 38 confirmations ago. So they're not very old. They're like maybe a half an hour old, or 40 minutes old. So once they're old enough, this icon here will change, I think, to a check mark, and it will say staking is active. If you know you have mature coins and you run this command that says get staking status, and it says true, true, true. If everything in here says true, but your icon here says you're not staking, sometimes these wallets get stuck and you just want to go File, Exit, and then open it back up. And then once it synchronizes, it probably will come up and say staking status is good. But whenever you open it, make sure you unlock it because you see that it's locked. So you just come in here, unlock, and make sure you're only unlocking for staking. And if you're going to be sending coins, like doing coin control, you need to unlock it fully. But if you just want to leave it for staking, and you always, whenever you just leave the computer for however long, you just sit there and leave it as for staking. And then make sure it's unlocked. And then after a minute or so, this should go to a check mark if you have aged coins or mature coins. And that's about it. We are all good. Our MasterNode, you come here to your MasterNode. Every once in a while, you want to come here to your MasterNodes tab, hit the update status. Make sure it still says enabled. Every once in a while, there may be some sort of network hiccup or something, which it's getting better. But, I always feel better knowing that it's enabled. And another check I can do is I come to my transactions tab and check to see if I've gotten any stakes in the last, or any MasterNode rewards in the last few hours. But it's also a good reason to come in here and double check this, because sometimes you'll have forgotten to unlock your wallet and you'll look and say, well, I haven't gotten a stake in 3 days. And then you'll look and say, uh-oh, my wallet's locked. So you unlock it. So it's always good to check on this every day or a couple days, because that's your responsibility as a rewards or a MasterNode owner, is to double check that you're actually maximizing your rewards. You don't have to have this open though. If you don't want this wallet open, you can close this wallet and your MasterNode is running on that VPS server 24/7. So it will be collecting MasterNode rewards. You only need this open if you want to be staking. So if you don't really care about staking, just close out this wallet, and then you don't have to worry about it. Your MasterNode's running and you're collecting rewards. Your wallet's not up. Who cares? But if you want to be staking, you have to have this wallet open. The coins will continue to age. So if you need to close this wallet to reboot your computer or to do some computer updates, that's perfectly fine. You can close this wallet and open your wallet as much as you want. Those coins don't reset. See how the coin age? It doesn't reset when you close the wallet and open the wallet. They continue to age when the wallet is off. So if you need to turn your wallet off for 3 or 4 days, don't worry. As soon as you turn it back on and unlock it, I bet you those coins that have been sitting there for 3, 4, 5 days, they will stake pretty much instantly after you've unlocked your wallet. So, it's not that big of a deal if you need to turn off the wallet for a few days. And that's the beauty of this setup, is your MasterNode is running out on the VPS. You don't need to have your local wallet running. It's not that big a deal if it gets turned off.